Anchor and media executive brought loved ones and colleagues together today to honor her contributions to the city. CW50's Chris Walker shows us how she's being remembered.
Karen Hudson Samuel's career in broadcast journalism spanned over 4 decades in Detroit. After making her name at WGPR-TV as an anchor, producer, and news director, the historian and journalist used her vision to create one of the biggest accomplishments of her lifetime.
The sudden death of a former Detroit anchor and media executive brought loved ones and colleagues together today to honor her contributions to the city. CW50's Chris Walker shows us how she's being remembered.
Karen Hudson Samuel's career in broadcast journalism spanned over 4 decades in Detroit. After making her name at WGPR-TV as an anchor, producer, and news director, the historian and journalist used her vision to create one of the biggest accomplishments of her lifetime.
We were talking about all the great people who went through WGPR TV 62. And
coming up on American Black Journal, another historic designation for Detroit's WGPR TV 62. Plus, we'll remember Karen Hudson Samuels, the driving force behind the preservation of WGPR and Black history here in the city. Also, we'll hear about this year's Sphinx competition for classical musicians of color. Don't go away. American Black Journal starts right now.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is...
Greetings. Hail Blacklight. R.I.P. to this lovely young lady. She took the vaccine and died right after. You see how they glossing over it. They rather talk about her accomplishments, which is good too, but what about taking that vaccine and dying? They're glossing over that. Well, on this particular program, Detroit's Black Journal, you seen that commercial. I cut it short because it was about 10 or 15 commercials after that showing they sponsoring a black program by white foundations. So that's one reason why they're glossing over it, because we no longer have black owned and operated shows or broadcasting companies here in Detroit. Except one, and it's so little and small that don't nobody know that it exists hardly, except those that know R.J. Walker, who came from WGPR. What this video is really going to be about is the remembrance of Master Farah Muhammad, Allah in person, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who established Temple No. 1, Lost Foundation of Islam, here in Detroit, Michigan, and what the fruit of the knowledge that they gave to the black community and what it produced here in Detroit. WGPR was a black-owned, operated radio and TV station that spawned many black-owned and operated businesses. And we're going to take our time and highlight it, using the knowledge of do for self. But Dr. Banks, who founded WGPR, was a Mason, black Mason. But he was much more than what we know and they tell us. But we're going to highlight all of that. And all of the stars that was in Detroit. The reason why I'm doing this is because you stop fighting. Detroit stopped fighting. The enemy. The enemy bought up all the, came in and swallowed up all the black-owned operations. Gave it to the so-called Middle Easterners. They're not Arabs, Mediterraneans. And this is what we're going to talk about.
To the Muslims of #1 Michigan. The following is the original rules of instruction to the laborers of Islam and the title of Muslim given by our Savior before his departure, with a footnote of a few words of explanation to lay pressure upon their minds of their many errors in the past and present, that they may see the light and walk therein. I thank you, Elijah Muhammad. Instructions given to the laborers by our Savior, W.D. Farad Muhammad. 1. The student must study his assignment, lesson number 1. Each student should copy the answers of lesson of Minister Elijah Muhammad and study until the student is able to memorize by heart all answers to of said lesson number 1. Note, here lesson number 1 is said to be the student's assignment first. Lesson number 1 lays the base of our work today and gives the student a clear knowledge of himself and his heavenly home, the best part of the earth, and who was the enemy to him and his nation, and why the enemy and righteous could not live together, and why was the righteous able to cast out his enemy. This teaches the student what he must do with the enemy of the righteous today. The righteous nation is now living in every part of the planet Earth. Therefore, the enemy must now be removed in every part of the planet Earth.
Now on that last note, we're supposed to be still engaged in a battle, but now we are passive. When Muhammad Ali came up with the rope-a-dope because he was fighting a younger, stronger, bigger opponent, he invented the rope-a-dope. But he didn't stay on the ropes forever. He came off the rope and knocked out his opponent. We on the ropes too long. And we have lost all our PowerPoints, except I hope we haven't lost our will all the way, our willpower all the way, but I'm just here to urge you to get up off the ropes and do battle. So we're going to start off with refocusing on the one who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, in Detroit. Now, they gloss over this part. The brothers, the nation of gods and earth, they don't want to recognize Master Farad Muhammad. They don't want to recognize the term Muslim. But he's the one that brought the supreme wisdom, what they study off of and use for guidance. The current Nation of Islam organization, they call themselves the Nation of Islam, but they really the Nation of Farrakhan. They gloss over the meaning of Master Farad Muhammad and his purpose coming to the city of Detroit and establishing the Nation of Islam. So they go to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and they don't hardly give him too much credit, because if it wasn't for him recognizing the fact that Master Farad Muhammad is Allah in person and came to save the black man from times like now, where we in this COVID pandemic. Not only is COVID used as a weapon of mass destruction, it's also used as a psychological weapon or psychological warfare to get you dependent on the instructions of a false God, of an artificial God, the God of this world. This is an artificial assimilation world, trying to place artificial intelligence with organic intelligence of Allah. To be continued.